Two people can have the exact same net worth, down to the dollar, and one of them is fine, the other one's in real trouble. The number everyone's throwing around right now is $192,700. That's the median net worth in America, according to the Federal Reserve's own survey. The actual middle, half above, half below. Not the $1.06 million average you've probably seen in a headline, which gets dragged up by a few hundred billionaires and tells you almost nothing about your own life. What nobody's saying is that the median and every number under it hides something bigger than rich versus poor. It hides a rate. Once you see the rate, you stop looking at your own number the same way. If you've ever looked at your net worth and felt your stomach drop, stick around. By the end, you'll know exactly where you stand against the real data, not the inflated kind. And you'll know about a system the IRS quietly hands out that almost nobody actually uses. Picture two 26-year-olds, Sam and Priya. Sam owes $9,000, all student loans, sitting around 6.5% interest on a steady repayment plan with 8 years left. Priya owes $9,000 too. Hers is credit card debt at 21.5%. The kind that's been quietly rolling over for 2 years while she pays the minimum. Same number. $9,000 underwater. Same age. Same net worth on a spreadsheet. Sam's $9,000 basically takes care of itself if he keeps paying. Priya's, left alone, becomes $11,000, then $13,000, then a problem that eats her paycheck before she even sees it. Net worth doesn't know the difference between those two debts. It just sees a negative number. And it's not a small issue. Close to a third of Americans now say they're carrying more credit card debt than they have in savings. A lot of that "I'm behind" feeling isn't really about falling behind on saving. It's a leak that got priced wrong from the start. Here's the actual lesson, the one idea I want you walking away with. Your net worth number is a headline. The interest rate behind your debt is the real story underneath it. Think of it as a bucket with a leak and a faucet. Sam's debt is a slow drip. Annoying, but it's not outpacing the bucket. Priya's is a crack in the side that's widening every month it gets ignored. I'm going to keep coming back to this bucket today because every stage of your financial life really comes down to one question. Is more water coming in than going out, and how fast is it moving? Under 35, median net worth sits around $39,000. That's not behind. Most of that bracket is either carrying student debt or just getting their first real paycheck. The bucket's barely started filling. Expected, not alarming. Here's something almost nobody puts in these videos. It's not just your number that matters, it's whose number you're comparing it to. A 30-year-old today isn't failing by the same yardstick a 30-year-old used 30 years ago. Home prices have outpaced wages for 2 straight decades now. Student debt that barely touched a lot of boomers is standard for something like a quarter of people in their 20s today. And under 35 net worth has historically taken harder hits from debt cycles than the smoothed-out median number lets on. So when you feel behind, ask a sharper question then, am I behind the median? Ask, am I behind people who actually had it as hard as I do? Comparing your 2026 paycheck to a paycheck from a completely different housing market and calling yourself a failure isn't honesty. It's bad math wearing a guilt costume. There's a second version of this same mistake, and it's just as common. Comparing yourself to the whole country instead of your own age group. A 32-year-old with $150,000 saved might only be sitting around the 50th percentile nationally. Sounds average, even a little disappointing. But measured against other people actually in their early 30s, that same $150,000 can land them closer to the 75th percentile for their age. Same number. 2 completely different stories, depending on which room you're standing in. That's not a trick to make you feel better, it's just the correct comparison. A 25-year-old and a 65-year-old were never playing the same round. While we're separating real problems from normal ones, here's another one that almost never gets its own segment. The emergency fund. Old advice, 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in cash. Right now, less than half of Americans say they could even cover a surprise $1,000 expense out of savings. Not 6 months, 1. A. $1,000. That number matters here because an emergency fund isn't really a savings goal, it's debt insurance. Every dollar you don't have sitting in cash is a dollar that turns into a credit card balance the next time your car breaks down, which means the bucket and the emergency fund are the same conversation. One's the water level, the other's what stops the next leak from forming in the first place. So if you're standing there right now with both kinds of debt, a slow drip and a fast leak, which one do you actually fix first? The rate answers that for you almost every time. Attack the highest rate debt first, full stop, even if the balance is smaller and less scary looking than the other one. A $5,000 credit card balance at 21.5% is doing more damage per month than a $20,000 student loan at 6.5%. It feels backwards to send extra money at the smaller number, but the math doesn't care how it feels. Pay minimums on everything else, throw every spare dollar at the highest rate, and only once that's gone does it make sense to accelerate the slower debt. That one rule, sort by rate and not by size, would have told Priya exactly what to do the day she got her first statement. Nobody told her because the conversation usually stops at pay off your debt, instead of pay off this debt first, specifically. I'm not going to walk you through 6 strangers across 6 decades. You've probably already seen that video somewhere. Here's the ladder, fast, so you can find your spot and move on to what actually matters. 35 to 44. Median net worth around $135,600. 2 things finally show up in this decade: home equity building and your 20s contributions finally compounding instead of just sitting there doing nothing. 45 to 54. Around $247,200. Peak earning years colliding with 2 decades of growth. This is also where the gap between someone who started early and someone who started late stops being a feeling and turns into a measurable dollar-for-dollar number. 55 to 64. Around $364,500. The highest saving stretch for most households, but a big chunk of that is home equity, not money you can spend tomorrow. 65 to 74. Around $409,900. The peak. Run that through a 4% safe withdrawal rate, and you get roughly $16,400 a year out of savings, on top of Social Security. Survivable. Not the cruise ship brochure. None of these numbers are a verdict on you. They're a snapshot of people who didn't all start with the same water pressure in their bucket. And here's the catch hiding inside that 65 to 74 number specifically. At the median, home equity makes up somewhere around 60 to 70% of total net worth for people in their 50s through their 80s. That's not pocket change sitting in a bank account. It's the value of the house, on paper, that you can't spend on groceries without selling it or borrowing against it. So when someone tells you their net worth is $400,000, the honest follow-up question is, how much of that can actually pay a bill next month? For a lot of people at the median, the real answer is a lot less than $400,000. Quick gut check. Financial planners sometimes use a rough rule of thumb. Your net worth should land somewhere around your age times your income, divided by 10. A 40-year-old earning $80,000 would be on track, around $320,000. Most people fall under that line, and that's fine. It's a direction, not a grade. But here's the part that actually matters. The Fed's own data keeps showing the same pattern. Households earning the same income can land 10 times apart in net worth. Same paycheck. Wildly different outcome. If income explained wealth, that gap basically couldn't exist. What actually explains it is the rate again, just a different rate this time. Not the interest rate on your debt. The percentage of your income you actually keep and invest, month after month without exception. A high earner who keeps 2% ends up behind a median earner who keeps 20%. That's not a guess, it's just how the math runs out over 20 or 30 years. Income gets you in the room. Your savings rate decides where you end up sitting. Here's the part that actually changes how you act, not just how you feel about all this. The government already built a catch-up lane, not a theory, not a mindset shift. An actual dollar-specific rule, and almost nobody uses it. Starting at 50, the IRS lets you add an extra $8,000 a year into a 401k, on top of the normal $24,500 limit for 2026. That's $32,500 a year before you've even touched an IRA, which has its own extra $1,100 catch-up on top of the regular $7,500. Turn 60, 61, 62, or 63, and the catch-up jumps again, an extra $11,250, putting you at $35,750 a year in a workplace plan alone. Let's put a real number on what that lane is worth, because extra contribution room doesn't mean much until you see it grow. Say someone starts using just the catch-up portion at 50, that extra $8,000 a year, nothing else changed, and keeps going until 67. At a reasonable long-run market return, that single decision adds somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $300,000 by retirement, on top of whatever they were already saving. Not from a bigger paycheck, not from a lucky stock pick, just from using a lane that was sitting open the whole time. That's a literal extra lane the tax code built for people who started late. Most people don't even know the lane exists, let alone the dollar amount sitting in it. Stop thinking about the number on the screen for a second. Start thinking about who you're becoming when you actually use it. The person who knows about the catch-up lane and uses it isn't behind. They found the lever everyone else walked past. The person who separates their $9,000 of student debt from someone else's $9,000 of credit card debt isn't being smug about it. They're just being accurate, and accuracy is what lets the panic stop long enough for you to act. You don't need a different bucket than the one you've got right now. You need to know exactly what's leaking, exactly what's filling, and then control the one thing that's always been yours to control: the rate. That's really the identity shift underneath all of this. Not, I make more money now, just, I know which numbers actually matter, and I stopped reacting to the ones that don't. The first feels out of reach for a lot of people. The second is available to literally anyone reading their own statement closely enough. If your net worth is close to $192,700, you're sitting right at the actual middle of the entire country. Not the bottom, the middle. Worth knowing. And if your number is negative right now because of student loans at a normal rate on a normal repayment plan, you're not a cautionary tale. You're on schedule. If you're 30 to 35 holding somewhere between $0 and $40,000, by the way, you're not behind either. You're sitting close to the actual median for your bracket, the same one we walked through earlier. The headline, average, you might compare yourself to instead is a different country's worth of money entirely. I won't pretend the math is gentle for everyone, though. If your negative number comes from high-rate revolving debt, that rate is working against you every single month. And no amount of "you're doing fine" changes that. This isn't financial advice, it's the math. And the math says rate beats balance every time. So tell me, is your number negative because of something slow, like a student loan, or something fast, like a credit card balance that keeps creeping up? Drop it in the comments. I actually read them, and I genuinely rather know your real rate than your rounded off net worth. Because that's the whole point of today. Not to hand you one more number to feel behind on. The median, the catch-up lane, the rate gap. None of it is a grade. It's a map. And a map only works once you actually know where you're standing on it. If this gave you a number you didn't have before, subscribe. We break down the real math behind the money decisions nobody explains clearly.